Hello, hello! Welcome to ihomeschoolph, where we'll talk about what really matters most in our homeschooling journey. Ako po, si Novi Antan, your homeschool coach in this conversation. Kamusta na po kayo mga homeschooler? Naku, alam ko po na nagsa-start na medyo, no? Dahil yung iba nagsa-start ng August, yung iba nagsa-start ng September. Naintindihan ko po na minsan talaga iba't iba po tayo ng kalendaryo. But okay lang po yan. So, whether you are in the world, nandito ba kayo sa Pilipinas or OFW po kayo, ay sana po ay nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan. So, for today's episode, I am so excited. I know that you have been listening to me and watching me, and I have discussed more about Charlotte Mason. But this time, dahil sa, madami na po nagsha-Charlotte Mason dito sa Pilipinas, madami ring mga myths, no, akong naririnig about this. And I think this is the time to be able to listen and maybe debunk this with my favorite ko na siya, no? Favorite resource person. And because she was also able to have this organization or this website called charlottemasonphilippines.com. And I know that she will have great inputs about these myths. Natutulungan niya po tayo kung paano i-debunk ito. So let us welcome Yen Cabag. Hello, my dear. Kamusta na?
Hi, Miss Novi. Thanks for having me again.
Yes. Maraming salamat for your time talaga. I really appreciate this. No? Alam mo nga yan, sinabi ko nga sa intro ko, alam kong madami akong kaibigan na talagang purists about Charlotte Mason. And I know you're also a purist, isn't it? And I know you were able to find Charlotte Mason as one of the beautiful experience, not only for as an individual self, but so motivating to be able to share it to your family. And that is so beautiful. But because of that, madami rin naman ako naririnig na parang kino-consider nila yung Charlotte Mason, pero parang takot, no? So, Yen, I think you're the best person to talk about this. Maybe we can unmask those myths and let us explore the truth about Charlotte Mason. And we will discuss these myths. So mga homeschoolers, kung curious ba kayo about this philosophy of Charlotte Mason, we just want to separate fact from fiction and be able to truly understand these principles of Charlotte Mason. And if you think na parang nagdodoble ka pang isip, well, you are in the right place. Pakinggan niyo po kami ni Yen today. Okay. Yen. So,
Yes.
itong mga myths na to, before we discuss this, paano mo na-discover itong principle na ito or method na to?
Yeah, I think for us as a family, we started homeschooling when our son was 5 years old. And before that, I was doing research on the different kinds of materials and everything. So one of the things that I researched was, I came across the Charlotte Mason method on the internet. Thank you. Thank God for the internet kasi maraming resources doon. So when I stumbled across the philosophy, I actually found out through a box curriculum. We started homeschooling with a box curriculum that was Charlotte Mason inspired. So from there, I started researching yung Charlotte Mason approach, and I was really happy to find I was happy to find it's a very enriching experience for our kids. So I started applying it slowly to my 5-year-old during that time, still using the box curriculum, but slowly adding more components of the Charlotte Mason method until the following year, we made the transition to actually do the full Charlotte Mason method. But it's really a journey. I don't think anyone can really perfect the method, but it's a continuing journey talaga for us as homeschooling moms.
So, ilang years mo na ginagamit or ginagamit tong method na to? Yes.
So probably about 10 because my oldest son is now 15 years old this year.
Oh, so ever since Charlotte Mason ka na, so hindi, hindi ka pa kumbaga nag-trial ng error ng ibang method?
I did try for maybe a few, like maybe a month or so ng iba. Yeah, when I was still exploring, I was trying to see, nag-download din ako ng everything else, even prepared materials for different philosophies. But yeah, but as I studied it more, parang mas naging, ano siya, we found out that it's a right fit for our family. It's something that we would like our kids to grow up on. And as we've been applying it, we saw it becoming a blessing to us as a family, kahit for me and my husband talaga.
Okay, in your own words, how can you explain briefly Charlotte Mason and her educational philosophy?
I think first we have to understand that Charlotte Mason was actually a British educator reformer who lived in the 1800s. So in reality, it's not a new thing. Parang naging fad siya ngayon, no, in the Philippines homeschooling circles, but it's not a new thing because she actually lived many centuries ago. And what I resonated the most with is her belief that a liberal education is available for all, not just for children of educated parents. So from her philosophy, she studied how children learn best and established a few important principles so that we ourselves can also teach them in the way that they're designed to learn. So one of these principles is that every child is born a person. So it helps us to recognize the different strengths and talents of each child that we come in contact with, and that children have a natural inclination to learn, and that they're able to understand excellently written language. I think these are some of the foundational truths of her philosophy, which help us to also be confident in teaching and sharing these kinds of materials with our children.
Yes, totoo 'yan ano. I think that's one of the principles na talagang na-attract ang mga, Filipino families, eh, 'no? Ikaw ba, anong one principle na nag-attract sa'yo, personally?
Mm, I think the one that focuses on education being a life. She has this saying, education is an atmosphere, a discipline, and a life. And when you say education is a life, it means that education is about exposing our children to living ideas, not just to dry facts. So that's the reason why we enjoy lots of excellently written literature, stories, yung mga history. We do our lessons in story form and not just memorizing of dates and figures and all that stuff. So it makes everything else come alive, like history, geography, yeah, everything. Parang mai-imagine mo, you're just there. You're living through the experiences.
Yes. Now, let's start with those myths, okay? Ready ka na ba, Yen?
I think so.
Okay. Sabi nila, ang myth, Charlotte Mason never had children of her own. So, paano siya makakapag-advise? Medyo unrealistic daw. Can you debunk this myth,
Uh-huh.
please?
So the first part is true. She never had children of her own. But the other side of it is that even if she did not have children of her own, she was able to study the lives of the countless children she worked with, which I believe personally that it gave her a wider scope to look into compared to just having your own family. Like, for example, if I'm here right now telling you my own experiences, I only have 3 kids. So I would only have the experiences from these 3 children. But in her case, she worked with several children, with governesses, in training them how best to teach the children in their care. So looking at that, we can see that she was able to work with a wide variety of children with different strengths and weaknesses. So that means she would have been able to test and prove her principles instead of just generalizing from a small group of kids.
Totoo yun, 'di ba? Hindi naman porket wala siyang anak 'no, biologically, eh, puwede na natin siyang i-judge. O judgmental ka ba? O 'di ba? Hindi yun. Dahil sa dami ng tinuruan niyang bata, naintindihan niya where her learners are coming from. So thank you so much, Charlotte Mason. Now, myth number 2, yung reading and narration daw 'yan, paulit-ulit. Yan lang ba yung dapat talagang sum of the total of the CM education? Yun lang ba yun?
So actually, reading and narration, yes, they do form a cornerstone of the Charlotte Mason method, but it's not all about reading. The Charlotte Mason method understands that children actually hunger for a varied curriculum, which is why we have lots of other things in our weekly schedule, such as songs. We have hymns and folk songs. We have art. We expose our children to the greatest masterpieces in art history. We do a lot of nature study and handicraft, among other things. So it's not just the reading and narration. They form a big part of it, but there's also a lot of other things.
Eto, siyempre meron ka ng maliit pang anak, meron ng malaki. So sinasabi nila, yung Charlotte method daw are suitable only for young kids. Kasi parang hindi siya match for older students. Parang sinasabi nila kulang yon. So can you debunk this myth and discuss how her principles can be adapted for older students as well?
I think for this question, the question will probably be whether we mean older kids who started from CM or we're just transitioning to it. Because
Maybe you
her
could be
methods,
able to
both or both, let's do
both.
both.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
So for the first case, I think her methods are best applied from the youngest years because that way the basic foundations are already set in place, such as learning to read challenging material and knowing how to narrate them. Because when a student comes into the CM method at an older age, it can be difficult to undo the experiences of other methods or traditional school, but it's not impossible. The challenge is that it will definitely require more work for an older student who's, for example, not used to reading a lot of material. And then he would have to like read so many number of pages because that's how the CM method works. Like it progresses year by year. Yeah. So if you come into the system at an older age, it may be harder to train our mind to work hard at narrating instead of just memorizing facts. Personal anecdote, when our son was starting to narrate well, my husband and I, medyo na jealous kami. So we decided to learn it ourselves. So yeah, I tried it myself with a book that was maybe a few years older than my son's capability, and I found that it was just hard. It's not natural. I mean, it's natural for us to narrate, but it's not easy to narrate whole chunks of material and in one go. But for my son, who was brought up in the method, it's natural right now. Like he can narrate for 20 minutes on end and just record it on the phone. So it's something that got trained into him from a young age. So I believe that if it's for an older child starting the CM method at that later year, one way of making the transition easier is to start with one or two components of the CM method at a time. For example, you might want to introduce nature study, then maybe a book or two to read and narrate. I think it may not be the best idea to throw an older student into a full-blown CM diet right away because it can get really rigorous and may need a bit of easing into it. But if it's an older child who has grown up with it, I think it's a very seamless transition. They just read more and more materials. They're able to grapple with more difficult things. We add things at the different forms. Like for example, we in high school they get to read newspapers, current events, all that stuff, and all these come naturally after the years of building into it.
So sa palagay mo yung totally nag-start siya na medyo malaki na yung anak niya, Charlotte Mason. Totally wala silang, I mean, they didn't start Charlotte Mason
Background.
the background. If they started
Uh-huh.
older na yung anak, what do you suggest?
Yes, I think it would be best to introduce it slowly, and it might require a little bit of parent handholding for a time. Kasi one of the principles in the CM method kasi is the importance of a single reading. When you say a single reading, you need to read through the material only once and then you narrate. You're not allowed to reread because when you reread, that means you're not paying attention. It also eats up a lot of
Yeah.
time. Yeah. So
Yes.
maraming things that the parent actually has to help the child actually develop the habit of
Yes.
before releasing them into independent learning for it.
Actually, with older kids, I really agree with that. Habitude is very important. So, habit
Yes.
and attitude. Siyempre, pag medyo malaki na, meron
Mm.
ng mga na-form na habits and character eh. So, I think
Yes.
relearning and doing this kind of method for an older child, you really have to talk and more
Mm-mm.
on processing it with your child. If this is what your child wants and you want,
Mm.
kasi meron na siyang, kumbaga, take on how he or she's going to learn, di ba, Yen? Thank you so much for that.
Mm-mm.
Now, ito naman isang myth, no? Sabi nila yung Charlotte Mason approach daw, expensive because it requires a lot of resources. Saka yung mga, ang daming nature tripping o kailangan mo ba daw mag-travel. Can you debunk this myth and meron ka bang masasuggest na cost-effective resource alternative into implement her principles as well na hindi naman daw magastos?
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, the CM method can be as expensive as you would like it to be. Kasi like you mentioned, it requires a lot of books. Yes, it does. Pero the good news is that nowadays, meron ang internet where plenty of the best pieces of literature, art, and music are available for free. Yung mga classic books natin, they're actually all in public domain. You can access it as free ebooks. You can download it to your Kindle. That's actually why we invested in a Kindle kasi lahat ng classic books, you can get it for $0. Yeah. And other than that, for example, you mentioned yung mga nature trips and everything. I think it really depends on the family budget. If you have the money to do all these expensive vacations, yeah, it's up to you. But there are ways to get around it. Like you can actually do nature study in a nearby school, nearby park, or whatever. It really depends on your budget. And I think this was actually part of our mission in creating our Talino CM curriculum. We opted to recommend mostly books that are in the public domain so that parents can opt to download the free ebooks online, or they can also choose to buy hard copy books or have them printed depending on their budget. So it really depends on the budget of the family.
I totally agree. So, wag nating reason, "Uy, dahil yung method, eh." Sabihin mo sa asawa mo, yung Charlotte of Method, kailangan yung magandang materials." Well, you have to set in your budget. Hindi naman kailangan maging expensive. Ang galing nga, eh, magkaroon ka lang ng book sale diyan. Living books po
Yes.
ito. Hindi kailangan maging
Yes.
wooden materials, kailangan ganito, kailangan bago. Hindi po, madaming ways na pwede kang mag-borrow, pwede kang
Mhm.
mag-trade. Alam mo, pwede nga kayong mag-exchange, 'di ba, trade books. Pwede kayong magkaroon ng
Yes.
book club, madaming ways. So, hindi po kailangan maging expensive kahit na ano pang method yang gamitin niyo. So,
Yes.
next, eto, Charlotte's Mason, another myth, yung philosophy niya is sobrang focus naman daw sa literature and nane-neglect na daw ang ibang mga subject. So, how would you counter this misconception and emphasize yung well-rounded nature of her curriculum?
Yes, actually, si Miss Mason, actually, yung recommendation niya is as wide a curriculum as possible. Ayaw din niya na puro literature. Yes, we use a lot of books, but these books are not all literature. Yung mga living books na to, they include history, geography, science, mga biography, and yung biography, it includes not just yung mga historical figures, pati yung mga scientists, mathematicians, nandyan, yeah, and many more. She also emphasizes the need for continued nature study from the early years all the way to high school. So hindi siya you're not always indoors. Kailangan talaga time outdoors. And then she recommends plenty of what we like to call the riches, such as hymn study, picture study, composer study, musical instruments, and handicraft. Actually, hindi to optional. These are not electives in the Charlotte Mason method. They're actually part of the yearly schedule. And in fact, in one of the parents' review articles, she even recommends scaling down on the readings if it means the child is not able to get into a handicraft for that week. So that's how important all these things are to her.
Oo nga, 'di ba, Yen? Very holistic siya, eh. Eh,
Mhm.
ino-honor niya nga, hindi naman alam mo, hindi tayo ano, hindi I mean, Charlotte Mason is not encouraging that as well and maraming
Mhm.
salamat na na-debunk mo siya kasi yan ang usually tanong sa atin. Okay, next.
Mhm.
Sabi nila yung Charlotte Mason daw is only suitable for a certain type of learner. So, hindi siya magwo-work sa may mga disability. So, can you explain how her methods can be beneficial for a wide range of learning styles and abilities?
So I don't claim to be an expert in in how to teach learning disabilities, but the way that Charlotte Mason advocates for a liberal education means that we access all the different parts of our brain. For example, like we would have a reading, then a math lesson, then maybe another reading, then we have music and art. So these actually allow us to work with our children's different strengths. So for example, for learning disabilities naman, yung pinaka-common siguro no dyslexia, when children struggle with reading, because we know that maraming readings in the Charlotte Mason method. The good thing is that now we have things like audiobooks, LibriVox. Yeah, so all these things actually help children who struggle with the reading aspect of it. Another thing is that I remember talking with one of the Ambleside online advisory ladies who had a special needs child. And she shared how yung hymn study talaga helped her bond with the child na parang ano siya, she came alive whenever they were singing hymns every day. So you can see that all these things, the music, the art, the nature exposure, the handicraft, all these things actually add to the whole experience, whether typically may learning disability ba or wala yung child, they're still born a person. So they still have specific strengths, specific capabilities, and all these things access those parts of the brain.
Yes, thank you for debunking that. So hindi naman naka-box yung principle ni Charlotte Mason, no?
Mhm.
And I do believe it is really one of the methods that I really appreciate and very flexible and very honorable to the learning pace of the child. Hindi naman nagawa yung principle na, uy, ito yung type of a person. Hindi po yun. So, nakakatuwa nga siya kasi very, ini-embrace niya yung different types of kids in her method. So maraming salamat. Now, I know we haven't discussed this topic, but I think we have to discuss it. I felt we should discuss it. So sinasabi nila, yung principles daw ni Charlotte is only relevant for Christian homeschool families. At hindi pwedeng gamitin ng iba. So what do you think about this?
So to give you a background, Charlotte Mason herself was actually a professing Christian, and she is clear that much of her philosophy hinges on biblical truths. When you read her books, she frequently quotes the Bible. She frequently refers to biblical principles. So, and also she is very clear that she believes that the training of the child is not just about training his mind and body, but also his spiritual life. So I think this is why the CM method at its very core includes the Bible and hymns as part of its lessons. Pero in reality, even if we remove the spiritual side of things, the Bible and the hymns are actually considered to be among the richest in terms of literary language. So even if you don't believe in the Bible, it's considered one of the best written pieces of literature. And yung mga hymns, they were written at a time when yung language talaga was an all-time high, yung mga choice of words nila and everything. So I think it really depends on the person using the CM method if you would like to remove these aspects. But in my personal opinion, it would probably deviate much from Miss Mason's own goals for the child's holistic development. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, thank you for being honest on that end. But I also believe kung buhay ngayon si Charlotte Mason, kung hindi ka man naniniwala no sa Bible, I do believe she also want you to use this, no? Thank you so much. Okay, next is sinasabi nila na yung Charlotte Mason ay sobrang focus lang sa nature. Okay, and outdoor education. So, nane-neglect na kung ano yung meron tayo ngayon, which is technology. So, can you give us that, a counter misconception about that and discuss kung medyo siguro yung ginagamit mo na technology within your approach?
So personally, I believe that being able to grow up on the CM method helps our children to be able to learn just about anything. I think that's a very strong foundation na kahit ano kaya nilang i-learn because they grow up learning, loving learning and being able to read things and applying it. So in our family, we opted to introduce digital devices at a later age. But when we did so, my son was actually able to adapt quickly to it. Since then, he's been able to use technology to research things, such as yung pinakalatest na ginawa niya was using Google Maps for studying the geography of rivers around our place. Kasi that thing you probably won't be able to do on your own. Eh? You have to make use of the Google satellites and everything. And he also learned to type on a word processor for his creative writing. Of course, in our case, we had him learn to touch type on a manual typewriter first in order to form the strong foundation for fast typing on a computer. We've also had other CM homeschoolers who learn things like programming, video editing as part of their school schedules. So I don't think it's a one or nothing thing.
Thank you so much for that. Naku, ang dami ko ng myths, pero hindi namin pwedeng i-discuss ngayon. Pero I think this is the last myth that I want to discuss na I think it's going to be very beneficial to our homeschoolers. So sabi nila, pag Charlotte Mason ka, hindi ka na pwedeng gumamit ng textbook. O ayan ha, mga parents, pakinggan natin si Yen. Anong take niya sa myth na ito? So hindi na ba talaga pwedeng gamitin yung textbook, Yen?
I think it depends on the textbook. The good thing is that these
Yes,
days...
I agree on
Yes.
that.
The good news is these days, marami ng textbooks written with the emphasis on living ideas then. Like for example, the Ambleside Online group of advisory ladies actually recommend using the Apologia Science curriculum in the high school years. And it's actually a
Yes.
textbook.
So, ginamit rin mo pala si Apologia, di ba? So, Hindi naman
Mm.
gano'n. So, depende lang talaga sa gagamit nito. So, kailangan po nating i-debunk 'yan 'no. Actually, kahit na anong material basta reading, living material that you could be able to use 'no. Hindi naman, hindi naman natin sinasabi na hindi gamitin po itong mga textbook. But I think God will be able to use also this textbook to utilize and be able to use Charlotte Mason's principles. Yes, 'di ba? So, yung mga I just want to ano, at least siguro kung meron tayong may nakikinig sa ating DepEd, which meron. Ma'am, yung Charlotte Mason, eh ano yan, pro DepEd po yan. Ayan, ha. Kasi meron ako nakausap dati na isang official na parang Charlotte Mason, ganyan. Well, I hope yung mga myths na diniscuss namin ni Yan ngayon, eh, nakapag-open po ng mindset nito po. At sana po ay makatulong. So, to seal this conversation, Yeng, so what is your advice for homeschoolers who are interested to take on this method?
Yeah, I think firstly, I would recommend you to spend time to learn it. Kasi most of our principles are contrary to what we grew up with. And it's crucial that we start to learn how children learn best. One of the most memorable things that I remember from reading her works is that, for example, when we go into college, right, we spend 4 years learning a craft. Like, for example, we learn about business, we learn about nursing, we learn about kahit daw shoemaking, you go through a course, yung mga TESDA, di ba? But when we start to homeschool, a lot of us go into it without knowing the basic principles of how a child learns. So I would really recommend, if you're looking into this method, not just to jump in right away, but to start to learn about her principles, to learn about the different components and how to apply it, because it will really make a difference on how you implement the things that she recommends.
How can they contact you? Do you have any workshops or do you have any coaching services that you can give our listeners and viewers?
So currently, we don't have any upcoming workshops scheduled, but there are a lot of other Charlotte Mason workshops available on the internet. You can just search them on Facebook. In my case, we have a few free resources on our website. You can just go to charlottemasonphilippines.com/shop. We have a free ebook there for first-time CM homeschoolers. Yeah, just go over, click the item. It's at 0 pesos. Enter your email, and then you get the download link. So we hope these free resources can be beneficial in your journey as a CM homeschooler or potential CM homeschooler.
Yes, and also check out her charlottemasonphilippines.com na website. Ayan. Madami kayong matututunan dyan. And also, meron po siyang material in Filipino. Do you have any resources other than Filipino that it's in your website?
Yes, we have the Talino. It's a full 1-year open and go guide for Charlotte Mason homeschooling. And we also have a few materials like the Kalikasan Philippine Nature Study Guide. And we also have one for finance, the Yaman Finance Curriculum for high school students. Yeah, and a few others. Feel free to browse the website.
Yes. Maraming salamat, Yenlo. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being with me. I mean, very refreshing to be able to talk to you. Maraming salamat in
Yes,
what
same
you do.
here.
Thank you so much. And don't
Yes,
stop on your mission, okay? So mga
thank
homeschoolers,
you.
sana po ay naging insightful po ang aming conversation about debunking all these myths. Alam niyo po, it's important to recognize this para malaman natin yung lie and the truth, no? While it's true na yung method po niya nag-start siya in private school, I still remember her history. But si Charlotte Mason firmly believe in the accessibility of education for all children and all types of families. So regardless of your background or whatever social status, I know and I do believe God used her ideas were meant to be adaptable and applicable to a wide range of learning environments. And ang goal po niya is to be able to create nurturing, engaging learning environments that empower our kids to become lifelong learners. So, if you want this method as well, o kung tatanungin nyo ginamit ko rin po si Charlotte Mason, but I'm eclectic. I'm not a purist. But I'm telling you, you can be able to check this out and explore, okay? And learn about it. Yun naman po ang beauty of learning. Maraming salamat po sa pagpili na makinig sa aming ngayong araw na to. So if you think this is insightful, please share our podcast, or if you're watching with us in YouTube and Facebook account, share it as well and tag us and give us your feedback. ito nga po yung beauty ng ating technology ngayon, 'di ba 'yan? Na you can repeat it, you can learn from us, and dati wala pang mga ganitong learning environment. So, kailangan i-maximize po natin hangga't nandiyan pa, 'di ba, Yen? So, at ang ating mga audience, maraming maraming salamat po. So, Taga, so I hope that if you're just starting your homeschooling or you're trying to make your homeschool plan, so check out in this method, no? Huwag matakot. So, I know some changes in life, especially if you're starting homeschooling, medyo nakakatakot. So, don't be afraid. You are not alone. And that's why I Homeschool PH is here. And Charlotte Mason Philippines is here as well. So lagi po nating tatandaan, in homeschooling, relationship is more important than academics. Ako po si Novi Antan, your homeschool coach, and I homeschool.